Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to a new edition of In Case You Missed It. And what I do here, well, there were two bases for this series, but now there's a third. So originally what I was planning to do was just, if you're very busy throughout your day, you can't keep up with all the news events that are happening, which happen very fast, reported every second because of the internet and all the media that we have. So you might have missed some items, and then people comment editorials on these various items, and sometimes I have a take on them that are very different than or something that you may have missed. So I provide those new angles in case you missed it, and the items themselves in case you missed it. But now there is a third reason why this is so necessary, and it's if you missed something because it happened and the media just couldn't be bothered to report it, or to be more accurate, they deliberately did not report it. And that's what happened today. And only moments ago, I watched a videotape of Donald Trump. He had a meeting of his cabinet. It was videotaped, statements that he made. And, well, I'll just link to some of these stories that I saw, and I'm going to describe a couple of them, and then you could read the stories and be your own judge. But one of the most interesting things that I noted was that after I watched the videotape, I went onto the internet, I went onto Google, and I Googled Trump cabinet meeting, and what came up was a whole series of articles. Here's a typical one. This was Chris Cillizza at CNN. Donald Trump just held the weirdest cabinet meeting ever. And every story that I saw, the whole list of stories, was all in that same vein. In number one, they were all critical, if not actually mocking of the meeting. And number two, nothing about the substance of the meeting, which is why you need me, because I'm going to tell you an important news item that came from that meeting that I haven't seen reported anywhere, and to me, I thought it was very big news. But that's number one. Number two, now, one of the things that Donald Trump said was, well, I'll just, he's got the exact quote here, so I'll just give you the quote. Quote, "Never has there been a president, with few exceptions, who's passed more legislation, who's done more things than I have." And then, quoting Chris Cillizza now, quote, "Okay, well, Trump has signed a number of executive orders and actions. What he hasn't really done is pass actual legislation through Congress." Well, let's go over here to PolitiFact. They're known for having a liberal bias, actually, in their political reporting. And they say right here, Trump has signed more bills in 100 days than any president since Truman, Spicer says. Sean Spicer, the press secretary. So this is Sean Spicer speaking, but it's basically echoing what Trump said in his cabinet meeting today. And quote, "Trump has signed 28 bills so far. Spicer is correct that this is more than every president going back about 70 years. You see, so what this guy said, Chris Cillizza, he was wrong. But because it's Donald Trump, you always need a caveat. You always need a qualifier. You can never just state a fact and just let it go, especially if it vindicates Trump in some way. So, next paragraph. However, this isn't a perfect measure, primarily because not all bills are created equal. None of the bills Trump has signed into law are particularly significant." Well, Trump wasn't talking about the significance of the bill, okay? So what he said was true, should have just let it go, but they couldn't because they had to mitigate the positive aspects in some way. He also announced that a new coal mine, for the first time in God knows how long, has opened up in Pennsylvania. Miners are going back to work. And of course, they saw no reason to report that. And finally, now we get to what I thought was the big news, is that in a couple weeks, there's going to be an announcement of a new program to get people back to work. And what it is, it's to provide training, apprenticeships, technical training, trade training, because there are a lot of jobs out there for which you don't need a 2-year or a 4-year college degree. And that was a big point that he made. There's going to be a big push to do this, to provide jobs and to provide technical training and to pay attention to people that don't want to teach English, they don't want to be lawyers, they want to work with their hands, and they can, and there is a big demand. I wonder how many people know that automobile mechanics can make $80,000 a year because there is a shortage of automobile mechanics. And this is one of the things he's doing, and he's pointing out that you have the federal government guaranteeing loans to these students that are taking on enormous debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, to learn skills or to gain knowledge that is never going to give them a job and allow them to pay back these loans. So they talk about forgiving these loans. So it's big, big news to me that we're finally, because I've said this for a long time. I mean, I can tell you, I'm a college graduate. I had a 4-year undergraduate degree, and I can tell you that as a practical matter in my life, out of all the education I've had, the only really useful course that I ever had was the typing course that I took in high school in the 11th grade, because I ended up working for a long time as a word processor, and I made pretty good money, 20-something an hour doing that. And all I was using was my typing skills that I learned in 11th grade. The stuff I learned in college, the only, in fairness, was I could say is that going to college, if you do it right, it teaches you how to teach yourself. It teaches you how to do research, how to look up things. So when I've had to acquire other skills later in life, it was easy for me to go to a library to look up things and learn. So I'll be fair in that manner. But getting back to the trade school, the other thing, the major point that nobody has ever mentioned, which I'm going to mention now, is that if the government guarantees a loan, if the government makes a loan, if the government pays for somebody's education, because it's our money, the taxpayers' money, is that money has to be paid back. And so when you decide what you're going to fund, who you're going to give a loan to, you don't fund 4 years of college to learn philosophy or navel gazing or English literature. Not that those are all, well, I would leave out navel gazing, but definitely feminist studies, unless you're going to teach feminist studies. And or even law. There's not a whole lot of demand for lawyers these days. You should have an internet job center listing what skills are in demand, and then the government should fund or guarantee loans only for those skills that are going to allow the borrower to get a job that will allow that borrower to pay back the loan. So if you want to be a lawyer, but the demand is for welders, sorry, if the government's paying for it, you're going to be a welder. And if you don't want to be a welder, then become a lawyer on your own dime. And if you want to study English literature, become a welder and then go to the library or go to the bookstore or order from Amazon.com all the books you want. But if I'm paying for your education, you're going to learn what I want you to learn. And that's it for today. See you again soon with more news items and commentary in case you missed it.
You got plan, darling?
I always got plan. They don't ever work, but I always got one.